All right, boys and girls, let me just check the microphone. Everything is good. We are recording. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Let's go with today's class. Today's lesson is about, we're going to go over 40 or 50 questions. Let's go analyze those. I already started this version of exam by myself, so you can either study yourself to the first 102 questions and take the time to complete those. Since I already completed those, I'm going to start with the other 202 questions. Now, for the real exam, it's actually like 98 questions in total, 4 labs. That is probably what you will get, because Cisco has a pool of questions or of about 2,000 to 3,000, including 40 labs, and you can get like um, any questions, any 4 labs or any of the 98 questions regarding these topics. So please be informed. It is a lottery. It's basically a lottery what you will get in the exam. For that reason, we have our own pool of questions and labs that will be working together. Let's start with today's class. So first question, it says, which switching feature removes unused MAC address from the MAC address table, which allows new MAC address to be added? This is actually B, MAC addressing agent. This is the correct answer. Let me change the color for a green one. Okay, nice. Next one, which two northbound APIs are found in a software-defined network? That is A and C, SOUP and REST. Those will be the two correct answers. So let's analyze this question. The question states as follows. Which two northbound APIs are found in a software-defined network? The correct answers will be SOUP, the SOUP. I don't know if that's the best pronunciation for that. SOAP. The SOUP, I think, is actually SOAP. We're going to check the pronunciation of that one in a moment. And then REST. Let me just go to Cambridge Dictionary so we can check on that. I want to know the pronunciation. Cambridge Dictionary. I want to check the pronunciation of this word, soup. I don't know if I am pronouncing it correctly. Let's go ahead and share the sound with you guys. Let's go ahead with this.
Soap. Soap.
It's soap. Soap. Soap is the correct pronunciation. So, which two northbound APIs are found in a software-defined network? We have the SOAP and the REST app. The REST. Those are the two correct answers. Let's go again with the next question.
Recording in progress.
Question 105. What uses HTTP messages to transfer data to applications residing on different hosts? So let's go with the question is actually REST. REST. In order to do this, basically to send from, let's imagine this is the HTTP server. And this one has to send information to the host. It will use, it will be using REST, basically. It will use REST. So the HTTP messages to transfer data from the PC of the end user to the server is basically using REST, the REST application. What uses HTTP messages to transfer data to applications residing in different hosts? We are using REST. That's basically a simple explanation about that one. Let me just erase that and highlight the correct answer. Let's move on with the topology. Refer to the exhibit. Show IP route. We can see the different routes and the different IPs and the PCs and the routers and switches. What is the next hop IP address for router 2, so that PC can reach the EIGRP? Router 2 is here. But which one has EIGRP? Either the server or the PC. It looks like this one is the right one because it's configured there to reach the server. 192 and 168, and that 30, that's 0, is the network that we want to reach through EIGRP with the lowest metric here. It will be 10.10.10.6. That will be the right answer. That's a tricky one. You have to be very careful because this one is also with EIGRP, but it has a higher administrative distance. No, it has the same administrative distance. It has a higher metric. I have to correct that. It has a higher metric. Therefore, the one that chooses is the one with the route to get to the 10.10.10.6, positive 0/1. Next one. This is actually drag and drop. So we are talking about agentless. What is agentless? Basically, this one, the device hardware. Device hardware that runs without embedded management features, agentless. What about the agent? What is the agent? Easy is the first option. Let me just add an X here. Easy to manage deployment option that may lack scalability. That will be the agent. And the agentless is the one about the device. So this one goes over there. What about the other ones? We have this one says to automatically install or deploy a configuration or update. That is a pull. So let me draw an arrow there for the pull to automatically install. There you go. And deploy a configuration or an update. Let's go with the other one. What about daemon? Daemon that determines when the central authority has updates available. That is provision. So provision is the one related to the daemon. It goes like this. What about the next one? Model in which the central server sends updates to nodes on an as needed basis to is the push. That one is the push one option. So this one is push. There you go. Let me just correct those arrows real quick. So the one for the push is the model in which the central server sends updates to nodes on an as needed basis. Let's go with the next questions. A switch is forwarding a frame out of all interfaces except the interface that receives the frame. What is the technical term for this process? That will be floating. What is the characteristics of RSA? That is actually the one with symmetric. It's a symmetric encryption algorithm. So I'm going to stop sharing the video for a moment so we can focus in the content. Let's go with the next one. Question 110. Refer to the exhibit. We have about 4 different switches and DC1, DC2, DC3, and DC4. All interfaces are in the same VLAN. All switches are configured with the default STP priorities. During the STP election, which switch becomes the root bridge? That is the one with the lowest priority. That will be B. I don't know it by memory, but we have to. Actually, it's C, so my mistake. It's actually C. I got it incorrectly here. I'm sorry, it's A. The answer is A. The one with the lowest MAC address is the 3C9D. So is this one. Let me just double check. This one right here. Let me just draw an arrow there. This DC3 is the one with the lowest MAC address. So if you encounter this problem or a similar, you have to be very, very careful about the MAC addresses. Probably, in order to find an explanation, you can do the following. You can just go to Google and search for an additional explanation for this. Right now, all we have is that the lowest MAC address is option A. Therefore, that will be the best option. Next one. Which advantage does with advantage, which advantage does the network assurance capability of a Cisco DNA center provide over traditional campus management? That will be B. Let's go ahead and analyze the answer. Cisco DNA Center correlates information from different management protocols to obtain insights, and traditional campus management requires manual analysis. Next one. Which signal, this is question 112, which signal frequency appears 60 times per minute? That will be A. A, right? Option A. 1 hertz signal. Okay. Question 113. Okay. Which port type does a lightweight AP use to connect to the wired network when it is configured in local mode? That will be B, trunk. Refer to the exhibit. A network administrator configures an interface on a new switch so that it connects to interface gigabit 101 on switch cat 9300-1. Which configuration must be applied to the new interface? Okay, looks like D for this one. Switchboard mode trunk, switchboard trunk native VLAN 331, switchboard trunk allow VLANs 100, 200, and 300. That's what we need there. So the answer is D for that one. What is the function of a controller in a software-defined network? Setting packet handling policies. Client experiences slow throughput. Question 116. A client experiences low throughput from a server that is directly connected to the core switch in a data center. A network engineer finds minimal latency on connections to the server, but data transfers are unreliable. And the output of the show interfaces counters errors. Commands show a high FCS error count on the interface that is connected to the server. What is the cause of the throughput issue? That will be a physical cable fault. Mainly when we are having FCS errors and CRC errors, we might be having a faulty cable there. What about question 117? Which component controls and distributes physical resources for each virtual machine? That will be hypervisor, C. Which command enables HTTP access to the Cisco WLC? That will be C. Config network web mode enable. Okay. Which command enables HTTP access to the Cisco WLC? Config network web mode enable. We are good on this one. Let's go with the following. A network engineer must migrate a router loopback interface to the IPv6 address space. If the current IPv4 address of the interface is 10.54.73.132 and the engineer configures IPv6 address 00000FFFF A364901, which prefix length must be used? This is a tricky one. It's actually C, 124. Mainly this is related to IPv6 theory, so we will have to review IPv6 theory to understand this one fully. It needs to migrate the router loopback, and if the current IP address is that IPv4 address, how does the engineer configures an IPv6 address on the prefix list? So basically, we are converting this IPv4 address to an IPv6 address and adding a /24 prefix. That's what we're doing here. What is the primary purpose of a console port on a Cisco WLC? Out-of-band management via an asynchronous transport. Drag and drop. the AAA feature from the left onto the corresponding AAA security services on the right. Not all options are used. We have authentication and authorization. Drag and drop AAA features. Okay, actually we have the correct answers here. So let me see if I can do the arrows. Leverage radius to grant user access. That would be authentication. So that is one of the first ones here. The authentication. What about the other one? It verifies the user before granting access to the device. It verifies this one. Goes right here. Okay, now we have the authorizations ones. After this, it enables the device to allow user or group based access. Okay, this is the first one over here, authorization. What about the second one for authorization? It restricts the CLI command that the user is able to perform. It restricts the CLI command that the user, okay, there you go. We have successfully completed this part of the assignment. Let's go with the other ones. Okay, let me go ahead and do a highlight. This is B. Let's analyze the question. What does the implementation of a first hop redundancy protocol protect against on a network? Am I recording? Hopefully I am. I will check the recording later because sometimes I am speaking in mute. Hello, testing. Yeah, looks like everything is going smoothly here. I am somehow recording. I need to stop the transcript because we don't really need it. So, the default gateway failure, that's the answer. What does the implementation of a first hop redundancy protocol protect against on a network? The default gateway failure. This is referred to the exhibit. Which interface is chosen to forward to the 192 and 168.055? This is actually 8 gigabit 0/1. Let's try to locate this IP address over there. So 192.168.0.55 is probably going through one of these networks, but it doesn't really specify the gigabit 0/1 over there for that specific network. Maybe there is another information that we are not seeing here about this one. That's very interesting. I'm trying to figure this one out. It's not gigabit 2 or gigabit 3. The answer is gigabit 1, but I don't really see it in the table there. Oh, that's why. First, it looks into the IP address and it sends it to the 10.0.12.2. But this one actually goes through this other route. And this one goes through gigabit 0/1. And that is the main reason, because we are traveling, checking first in the table where this one needs to go through this IP address, which is the default gateway. And this default gateway goes to this network that is connected via gigabit Ethernet 0/1. Next one, refer to the exhibit. Switch 1 and 2 represents two companies that are merging. They use separate network vendors. The VLANs on both sides have been migrated to share IP subnets. Which command sequence must be issued on both sides to join the two companies? Pass all VLANs between the companies. Okay, it's actually C. Let's see why. Switchboard mode desirable, dynamic desirable. Switchboard trunk allow VLAN all. Switchboard trunk native VLAN. Okay, yes, because we are assigned for the native VLAN 7. We are permitting all of the VLAN traffic. And so they can actually negotiate between the devices. We are configuring the switchboard mode dynamic desirable option. That's basically the reason and the configuration that we are adding here. That's a tricky one. A Cisco engineer notices that two OSPF neighbors are connected using a crossover Ethernet cable. The neighbors are taking too long to become fully adjacent. Which command must be issued under the interface configuration on each router to reduce the time required for the adjacency to form, to be completed in the state of full, to reach the full state? It's actually B, IP OSPF network broadcasts, because they are two OSPF routers connected. All right, next one. Refer to the exhibit. How many objects, keys, and JSONs lists are present? One object, 3 keys, and 3 JSON lists. This is actually mainly related to programming. So it's actually one object, and then we have a total of 3 keys. We can see the starting of the keys, and we have the first key over here, the second key, and then the last key. Basically, all of those are a key, each of them. And there are 3 values, those 3 values as well. So how do we know where each key is located? Because they are doing the brackets. They are separated by brackets. So we have the 3 keys and the 3 values of JSON. That's another tricky question as well. Next one. What is a benefit of a point-to-point list line? A, full mesh capability. All right. What are 2 differences between WPA2 and WPA3 wireless security? The answer is A and B. We're going to analyze those in a moment. First, I want to highlight those so we can have them highlighted. Let's go over the question one more time. What are the 2 differences between WPA2 and WPA3 wireless security? The first one, WPA3 uses SAE for stronger protection than WPA2, which uses AES. And WPA2 uses 128-bit key encryption, and WPA3 supports 128-bit and 192-bit key encryption. All right, nice. Next one, refer to the exhibit. Each router must be configured with the last usable IP address in the subnet. Which configuration fulfills this requirement? Okay. I think it's actually B, but I've seen this question before. Yeah, it is actually B. It's a tricky one as well. So we have to look at this and understand how are we going to configure each of the interfaces. The correct option is B, so let me just highlight those for now. Let's do that. And how do we know the correct configuration? We have to understand the mask configuration and the IP addresses. So the first one is fast Ethernet 1/0. And we are assigning that IP address of 10.88.31.126. That is actually in router 7. This one in router 7. Okay. And that 24, 255.255.255, that 40 mask address, which is /26, doesn't really make much sense. Let me double check on that. /26 apparently. Then we have a slash on fast Ethernet. That is 10, yeah, /26, 140. The 192 is the 00 on router 8. Router 8, this one. I see it there. That one is /24, apparently is 192. That really doesn't really make much sense, because this is the .40 one, but maybe there's an error in the configuration of these topologies on Cisco. They just mess around with these topologies And the 1.1 is this one, /27, apparently 10.10. Okay, so they are only using 10.23.98.150 with a slash for 248. What I'm thinking is that maybe there is some information that we are not seeing. Let me see. This is actually the correct network. It's just the mask /27. Let me do something. I want to validate this one in the subnetting table real quick. Subnetting table. So when we're talking about slash, or that 258 is /29. Is there a /29 there? I don't really see it there. I think they just don't really know what they're doing because it doesn't really make much sense. If we are configuring, for example, this first one, 10/26, if we go there, /26, it will be 192. That will be the correct one. So probably there is an error in this dump. There is an error in this dump. We are going to select this one because apparently it's the right one, but there's probably an error. Because for /26, we need to select 255.255, that 255.198, which is actually this one. This is the correct one instead. 198, 192. So I'm trying to check. It will be the 65 address. 65 address. I don't really see it anywhere. 126 is probably this one, the 192. But if we go to this one, 27. 27 is 224. Okay, and the other one, so 27 is 224. I don't see it anywhere, 224. They just probably mess around with this question because this is the one that there is correct, but it doesn't really make much sense. The MAC addresses, the mask that they are assigned to the interfaces doesn't really make much sense. What about the other one? The /28 is actually 240. 240. So this one, the 1/0 with a /26 should have a mask of that 255.255.255.192 over there. The 00 should have a /28, which is that 240 over here. And this one, the /27, 255.255.255.128. So they just probably make these questions and sometimes they don't even check, probably. So you have to be very careful. We're going to select this one because this is the one that apparently, according to the exam, is the correct one, but it is not making much sense if we compare it to our table with the mask. So we are going to ignore this question for now. We were able to validate the correct options, but it doesn't look like we have the valid options here. I mean, I've been looking for those. I don't see them. What about C? 240? No. Capacitor 00 is the one that should have the 240 option. The 00. 00 over here. I don't see it anywhere. Oh, I see it here. Okay, I see it here. The 00 is making sense. That is D. Because this one has the 240. What about the 192 for the 10? Is that making any sense? The 192 /26 for the 10 there? Yeah, that one makes sense. So probably the right answer is actually D, but they just didn't check this one in the best possible way because these MAC addresses are not matching to the correct options according to each of the graphics information in this diagram. We're going to understand that the best IP addresses are the mask that we check in the table and we validate it and confirm. we're going to leave the one that they selected as the best choice because it's something with the exam, but maybe there's a dump error with this question. Let's go with the next one. This is actually D. We have to configure a static route to get from one destination to the other one. An engineer is updating the configuration on router 1 to connect a new branch office to the company network. Router 2 has been configured correctly. Which command must the engineer configure so that devices at the new site communicate with the main office? 172.25.25.0/24 mask, and then 192 and 168.2.2. So we are configuring in which router? In router 1, we are configuring this static IP address to get to the next hop address, which is actually this one right here. And configuring that, getting to the next hop address from this router to this next hop with this static route, we should be able to successfully complete this step. Nice. Next one. Which two transport layer protocols carry syslog messages? A and B, TCP and UDP. Interesting question. Syslog messages. Refer to the exhibit. Gateway of last resource 172.16.2.2 to the network 0000. By the way, before proceeding to these questions, if you want to find this, is actually very easy in the internet. You just go to Google and type subnetting table information, and you go to images, and you will be able to find this. I will also share this with you. Let me see if I can save it in the documents or something, so I can share this one with you. Let me do it later on, subnetting table. I'll share this one with you as well, guys. A packet source to the 10.10.10.32 is destined for the internet. What is the administrative distance for the destination route? So we need to get to the 10.10.10.32. What is the administrative distance? The answer is A, is 0. So it's probably a route that is directly connected to get to the 10. The 10.10.32 is actually this one that is connected directly. It's a tricky one. It's a very tricky question. Once we have a directly connected interface, the administrative distance will be 0. If we have protocols, then we will have different administrative distance. Let's go with the next question. When is the put method used within HTTP? The answer is A, to update the DNS server. This is basically theory. This is for the part of programmability and automation. One of the last topics that we have in the last couple of years adding to the Cisco exam. What describes northbound REST API for the SDN, software defined network? That is actually B. Application facing interface for get, post, put, and delete methods. Okay, refer to the exhibit. Support 1. SW1 supports connectivity for a lobby, conference room, and must be secure. The engineer must limit the connectivity from PC1 to SW1 and SW2 network. The MAC address allowed must be limited to which configuration secures the conference room connectivity. That is D. So in order to add the correct security for this event, the answer is D.
Recording.
Let me explain why, because this is the only one that is really making the trick, is doing what we need to do, the functions. We're adding security with the command switch port security and switch port security maximum 2. So that is the reason, because that is the correct choice. Refer to the exhibit. Low balance traffic is coming in from the one destined to a host at 172.16.1.190. Which next hop is used by the router to forward the request. That will be option C. Option C. That will be the correct choice. Let's see why. So we need to get to the 172.16.1.190. In order to get there, we need to choose this route. It's using OSPF. And this network is actually allocated in the 172.16.1.184/29. We are at this moment using the longest prefix match, as you can see there, and OSPF as well to get to the 182 and 168.7.35. Those are some of the reasons because we are selecting this specific route. A tricky one as well. So we have retransmissions here, and this is OSPF, IP OSPF interface gigabit 000. A network engineer is configuring a router as a replacement router on that network. After the initial configuration is applied, it is determined that router 2 failed to show R1 as a neighbor. Which configuration must be applied to router 2 to complete the OSPF configuration and enable it to establish neighbor relationship? So probably this hello 15 needs to be added. Let me double check on that. It's actually D. It's the dead interval 40 that we need to apply there in the router 2. Let's see why. Let me just double check on why. We can see dead 40. Maybe. Oh, I see why. This one has a dead of 40 and this one has a dead of 45. This is router 2. So they will not be able to establish network connectivity through OSPF because they have different dead timers. They have to have the same hello and dead timers in order to establish OSPF connectivity. That is the reason because we have to configure in router 2 that specific command, IP OSPF dead-interval 40. Interesting question. What about this one? DHCP server is configured with a DHCP pool for each of the subnets represented. Which command must be configured on switch SW1 to allow DHCP clients on VLAN 10 to receive dynamic IP addresses from the DHCP server? That is actually C. It doesn't really give us like an output. Maybe the output is missing somewhere. I don't really see it anywhere here. Maybe we're missing the output, but it says that they're working along with a pool and this a DHCP server, and the correct is IP helper address 192.168.20.2. Let's go ahead and Google search this question because we want to see the diagram, but for some reason we are not seeing it. So let me see if I am able to extract the text. Let me work on that. We want to go to Google and investigate to see if we are able to see the diagram, the physical diagram for this one. Let me see if we can see it there somewhere. Maybe in this one. Oh, there you have it. There you have it. So it's actually the 20. This is a diagram, and this is the question. We are trying to configure the DHCP server. In order to get an IP address for that, in the switch 1, we need to configure this command, IP helper address 192 and 168.20.2. Oh, nice. It's very, very different when you have actually the physical output and you can see everything that is being configured and everything that is missing. So it's like a puzzle. It's like a puzzle, and we are completing the puzzle here. Nice. We finally have the correct information and we can see exactly what is the output. So this is a tip that you can use. If you encounter a problem with a question, you can just Google search it and type it, and hopefully you will see the reference diagram related to that specific question in case that happened to you. Drag and drop. Question 139. Drag and drop the DNS lookup commands from the left onto the functions to the right. Let me go ahead and save this exam so we don't lose everything that we have done today. And let's continue with this question. So it enables the DNS lookup on an individual interface, that is the IP domain lookup source interface. IP domain lookup source interface, the DNS lookup on an individual interface. Let me see if I can do an arrow there. Nice. It enables the DNS server on the device, IP DNS server. There you go. It identifies the DNS server to provide lookup services, IP name server. So lookup services. What about that one? Lookup services. That is the IP domain name, right? IP domain name. You can see it. IP name server. I'm sorry. IP name server. IP name server goes like that. It identifies the DNS server to provide lookup services. It specifies a sequence of domain names, IP domain list, sequence of domain names. This one goes like that. What about the next one? Specify the default domain to append to an unqualified host names, IP domain name, IP domain name, IP domain name. This one goes right here. There you go. And finally, we have the IP host. It statically maps an IP address to a host name, IP host. This one goes right there. I think we have pretty much completed all of them. Nice. Nice, nice. The correct answer is A, of course, because we are highlighting those specific statements for those definitions of DNS. What about this one? This one is actually easy because we are talking about TCP and UDP. We already know this is connection oriented and this is connectionless oriented. We know this is reliable and this is unreliable. So we can just highlight those. Let me see if I am able to. So let's analyze them. Provides best effort service, that will be TCP. Okay, supports reliable. Actually, this is UDP, my mistake. Best effort service, because this one is effortless. Best effort service is UDP. My mistake. This is UDP. It requires a client and a server to establish connection before sending packets. That will be TCP. Transmitted based on the data contained in the packet without the need to data channel. That will be UDP there. And it supports reliable transmission. That will be TCP. There you go. Nice. We got them now. Question 141, refer to the exhibit. We have a host, script, encryption, radius, RSA. What are we missing here? An engineer executed the script and added the commands that were not necessary for SSH and now must remove the commands. Which two commands must be executed to correct the configuration? So he added some configuration for the SSH. No transport input SSH, probably one of those. Let me double check. Is C, no IP name server. That is one of the correct answers. No IP name server 198.51.102.20. This one, we need to remove this one. What is the other one that we need to remove? Oh, the option D, no service password encryption. No service password encryption. So we need to remove those commands with the no. Deny those commands and remove them. That's basically what we need to do here. 142, question 142, refer to the exhibit. Okay, nice. We have an exhibit. We can now see it. The question states like this. We need to follow along with these networks and figure out, according to the routing table, which is from the internet and which is for the router. Let's see if we can figure it out. So for the internet, the 10.10, the 10.14 will be for the internet. Let me see if we can see it there. It's actually 10.10, the 10.16, probably. 16, that is one for the internet. So 10.10.10.16. What is the network? 12. Okay, that's an interesting one. What about the other one? 10.10.13.129. Do we see it there somewhere? 10.10.13.129. How do we know this one is for the internet? We already confirmed this one. Maybe we can look it up in the routing table to see if we can see it there somewhere. 10.10.12, the 10.12. Do we see it there somewhere? Yeah, it is fast Ethernet 04. But now this one is fast Ethernet 03, but I don't really see any fast Ethernets. I just see that all of them are going through 000, which is the default gateway to get to the internet. So those two are for the internet. Why is this one not correct? This is the router information. So this one is not correct because this goes to the router. And what about the other one? 150. This one goes to the router. Let's double check on those. So this one is directly connected and this one goes to the router. Okay, the 10.10.13.0 is probably here somewhere connected. You can see it here. Okay, this is actually learned by OSPF, so it's a little bit different. Oh, it says directly connected here, so I can see the routes here. This is one of the connected routes, and these are the other connected routes. All of them are directly connected routes as well, related to the router. So from that, we can validate that this one and this one are the routers, and the other ones are internet. Let me see. There is one that I'm missing. 10.10.100.128. Do we see it somewhere? Okay, so let me highlight the ones that are learned through OSPF because those are the ones that are getting to the internet. I'm not able to highlight those. So I'm going to do an arrow here. This is one of the ones that is OSPF. So that's the reason because this one is getting there. 10.10. Actually 100. Do we see 100? I see this is OSPF and I see this is OSPF as well. I don't see the 100 network there. Probably just take the default gateway to get to the internet, but I don't really see it in the routing table. Oh, I don't see it. I see these two are OSPF and they get to the internet, but I don't see the 10.10.100.128. I see the 16 and the 129. Those are internet connections. So let me just correct that. They get to the internet. This one get to the internet and this one get to the internet. That's a very tricky question because some of the routes we can find in the routing table after doing the IP route command in the router. But some of the other routes, probably it just go by the default gateway to get to the internet because we don't see them exactly there in the routing table anywhere. Like this one, for example, the 10.10.100.128. I don't see it in the routing table. So we are assuming and we're understanding that the ones that are not in the routing table, for example, that one, they go through the static route to get to the internet, static route of the router, and to the default route of the router to get to the internet. That's the way that this one gets to the internet. And this one actually shows in the routing table, and this one too. The 13.129 is there somewhere, probably in this one, in this route. And the 13.13.116 is also there. 13.13.116. It's probably this one right here, the 116. The 116 is right here. I'm trying to figure out the 129. The 129 is probably this other one with OSPF. Okay, that was a little bit heavy, but we did our very best to understand the routing table, understand how a router thinks, and how is the router sending all of those routes there. That's a cruel question. Okay, let's go with the 143. What is the reason to implement the LAG, the lag, on a Cisco router? The answer is B. Increase the available throughput on the link. Question 144. What are two port types used by a Cisco WLC for out-of-band management? That is C, service, and E, console. Console is the other option. So service and console are two port types used by the Cisco WLC for out-of-band management. Next, this is actually drag and drop. So it records the duration of each connection. That will be accounting. The duration of each connection. Where do we have it? There. It supports user access reporting. User access reporting. Where do you see that one? This one goes here. What about the other one? It performs user validation via TACACS. That is authentication. User validation via TACACS. This one goes here, authentication. It verifies who you are. This is actually authentication as well. So we have the authentication and the accounting options there. Let me just go ahead and delete those for now. We don't want the arrows. We just want the to go there with a very aesthetic option. So they look a little bit better. I'm just going to do the arrows here, then record the duration. This one is accounting. I need to delete that one. This is accounting. Do you guys remember the other one for accounting? It was the user access reporting. So this one is right there. We are going to do the following. We are going to highlight all of the correct options here for this step. So we remember the authentication is the TACACS option and the who you are. And the accounting is the reporting user access and the records duration of each connection. Refer to the exhibit. Router 2 and router 1 and 2 are configured with RIP as a dynamic routing protocol. A network engineer must configure router 1 with a floating and static route to serve as a backup route to the network 192 and 168.23.0, which command must the engineer configure on router 1, and that is actually D. 192.168.23.0, we're trying to get to the next hop, which is 192 and 168.13.3. It should be there somewhere. It's right here. This is the next hop address that we are configuring with that administrative distance of 121, which is a little bit higher than the 120 for RIP. So that is the correct choice. Let's do this one. What are two facts that differentiate optical fiber cabling from copper cabling? So it carries signals for longer distances. It provides greater throughput options. Okay, let me just highlight those again. Nice. Why would VRRP be implemented when configuring a new subnet in a multi-vendor environment? To enable normal operations to continue after a member failure without requiring a change in a host ARP cache or cache. Okay, so that is D, the option D, 149. What must an engineer administrator consider when deciding whether to configure a new wireless network with APs in autonomous mode and APs running in the cloud-based mode? It's actually A. We're going to analyze this one. Let me just try to highlight it in the next couple of 10 years. Maybe I am able to do it. Okay, I got it. Autonomous mode APs are less dependent on an underlay, but more complex to maintain than APs in the cloud-based mode. Okay, nice. 150. The CRUD model, which two HTTP methods support the update option, that is A and B, put and patch. What are two advantages of implementing a control-based architecture instead of a traditional network architecture? B. B is one of the options and D is the other one. So it provides increased scalability and management options. It establishes configuration task automation. Let's get to question 160 so we can close for today. This one, we can see they are in half duplex and full duplex. This is a mismatch, duplex mismatch. The answer is B. The speed settings and the switches are mismatch. It was an easy one. Okay, we didn't even have to read the question back because we figure out that if they have half duplex over here and full duplex over there, there's a mismatch of the speeds. Also, we have 10 and 100 for the speeds. The switches are connected via Cat5 Ethernet cable that was successfully tested. The interfaces are configured as access ports and both in down status. What is the cause of the issue, of this issue? It was a mismatch between the speed settings. The next one says, a technician requires a report of network slowness. He issued the command to find and validate the root cause in the facilitator 0/13. Okay, let me see. We're having multicast. We're not having collisions there. It's physical errors. So we need to figure out why are we getting physical errors on this according to the output. Let's validate that. Are we getting any CRCs? Yeah. This is the reason we are getting CRC errors and input errors, and that is related to a physical problem. Next one, a router received 3 destination prefixes, 10.0.0/8/16/24. When the show IP route command is executed, which output does it return? Let's look at the possible answer is actually C. We can see the default gateway of last resource is there, and we can see the routes are being known via OSPF through the 192 and 168. They are traveling by the 192 and 168, the 1.1, Ethernet 0. And this is actually summarizing all of the routes, 10.0.0.0/8. So we have to be careful about those because those are very tricky as well. Let me highlight that answer again. That's a tricky one. Basically, they are summarizing all of these routes in a single one for now, and that's what we see in the routing table so far. The answer is C. That is the correct choice. 155, this is actually about wireless topics. So refer to the exhibit. A network configures a CCNA WLAN client so that clients must re-authenticate hourly, and to limit the numbers of simultaneous connections to the WLAN to 10. Which two actions complete this configuration? This is actually A, right here, and E, like that. So that is the correct choice. The A option is one of those, and the E. Let's see why. The maximum allowed clients value is 10. So probably that is something that comes by default, or we have to configure there somewhere. We have to configure there. We have to basically type here the 10, which is the maximum amount of users allowed. And also the seconds, the 3600 seconds. Enable the session timeout and set a value of 3600. So let's see the session timeout. Where do we find that? The session timeout is right here. So 3600 is the value that we need to enable. Basically do a check here and enable this 3600 value in seconds. So we have the hourly re-authentication, and we have the maximum of 10 clients for this specific choice. Nice, nice. 156. Which state, and let me just change the color, which state is bypassed in rapid PVST plus when port fast is enabled on a port? That is actually learning. Learning is the state that is bypassed in rapid PVST plus when port fast is enabled on a port. Okay, so we are using the port fast option to bypass this state and things are moving faster. Nice. Let me save this. What about 157? It says, when a switch receives a frame from an unknown source MAC address, which action does the switch take with the frame? The answer is D. It associates the source MAC address with the LAN port on which it was received and save it to the MAC address table. That's what the switch does when it doesn't know the MAC address. So it associated to a LAN specific port and add it to the MAC address table. What is a function of the southbound API? The correct answer will be manage flow control between an SDN controller and a switching fabric. That will be the correct choice. Let me just highlight it one more time because I didn't highlight the point there, the dot. What about the next one is another exam. I think we are good for now. We completed about 158 questions. You can continue starting the first 102 questions here and going over to get to the 158 and even move forward to complete more questions. For now, I am finishing the class. I am saving the changes of this exam. It's been a pleasure. Take care, boys and girls, and I see you around. I hope that you have learned a lot from this lesson, and I will be sharing that subnetting table with you guys so you have it available. Goodbye. See you until next class. Let me just enable the camera so I can say a farewell to you all. Take care, boys and girls.